After years of legal battles, Ripple's fight with the SEC has finally reached its epic conclusion. But what does the court's verdict mean for XRP, the future of crypto regulation, and the broader blockchain space? Join me as we break down the key rulings, explore why XRP's programmatic sales are not securities, and uncover how this landmark case could reshape the entire crypto landscape. Let's dive in. XRP versus SEC. The final verdict explained. For over 4 years, one legal case cast a shadow over the entire crypto industry. SEC versus Ripple Labs. It wasn't just a battle between a single company and a government agency. It became a symbol of the regulatory uncertainty that has long plagued the digital asset space. XRP, one of the top cryptocurrencies by market cap, found itself at the center of a storm, and its fate became intertwined with how digital assets are treated under U.S. law. As of March 2025, this high-stakes legal drama has reached its conclusion, and the implications are massive. Let's explore the full story, from the origins of the lawsuit to the final verdict, and what it means for Ripple, XRP holders, and the future of crypto regulation. The beginning, SEC's lawsuit against Ripple. In December 2020, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, filed a lawsuit against Ripple Labs and its executives, CEO Brad Garlinghouse and co-founder Chris Larsen. The SEC alleged that Ripple had conducted an unregistered securities offering, raising over $1.3 billion through sales of XRP tokens since 2013. At the heart of the issue was the SEC's claim that XRP was a security and therefore subject to federal securities laws. Ripple, however, argued that XRP was not a security but a currency, similar to Bitcoin or Ethereum. Unlike traditional securities, XRP was designed to facilitate fast, low-cost cross-border payments and had utility beyond speculation. Ripple claimed the SEC was overreaching its authority and that there had been no clear guidance on whether cryptocurrencies like XRP should be treated as securities. The lawsuit immediately sent shockwaves through the crypto world. XRP's price plummeted, many exchanges delisted the token, and investors were left in limbo. What had once been a top 3 cryptocurrency suddenly found itself at the mercy of a complex legal battle. Legal complexity and industry attention. As the case unfolded, it attracted widespread attention, not only because of its implications for Ripple and XRP, but because it could set a precedent for how other cryptocurrencies would be regulated in the U.S. Would Ethereum and other tokens face similar lawsuits? Was every token issued through an initial coin offering, ICO, now at risk of being labeled a security? Ripple's defense strategy focused on attacking the vagueness of the SEC's regulatory approach. They argued that the agency failed to provide fair notice that XRP was considered a security, violating the Due Process Clause. This defense gained traction with many legal experts who saw the case as an opportunity to push back against regulatory overreach. Key turning point, Judge Torres ruling. In July 2023, U.S. District Judge Annalisa Torres issued a highly anticipated ruling. In a nuanced decision, she drew a line between different types of XRP sales. Absolutely. Let's expand on those 3 categories in more detail to show how each type of XRP distribution was treated differently by the court, and why it matters so much. First, programmatic sales, not securities. Programmatic sales refer to Ripple's automated sales of XRP on public cryptocurrency exchanges, such as Binance, Coinbase, or Kraken. These sales were not targeted at any specific investor or group. They were conducted through trading algorithms, similar to how large companies might buy back their own stock or how market makers operate. Why the court didn't classify these as securities? The court found that buyers in programmatic sales did not know who they were buying XRP from. Most of them didn't even know Ripple was behind those tokens. This meant there was no reasonable expectation of profit based specifically on Ripple's efforts, which is a key requirement under the Howie Test, the legal standard for determining whether something is a security. In simple terms, if you bought XRP on an exchange, you weren't necessarily investing in Ripple. You were buying a digital token with many possible uses or intentions, such as remittance, utility, or trading, not necessarily speculating on Ripple's business success. Impact. This was a massive win for Ripple and the crypto community at large. It set the precedent that not all crypto sales on exchanges are securities, especially when buyers don't have a clear link to the issuer. Second, institutional sales, classified as securities. Institutional sales involve direct transactions between Ripple and sophisticated investors, such as venture capital firms, hedge funds, or financial institutions. These buyers typically sign contracts with Ripple and receive large quantities of XRP at discounted prices. Why the court said these were securities? Unlike public buyers, institutional investors had direct contact with Ripple, and in many cases, were given materials or presentations that promoted XRP's potential to increase in value due to Ripple's business efforts. This met the Howie Test criteria, which requires an investment of money in a common enterprise with an expectation of profits derived from the efforts of others. Here, the court agreed with the SEC that these investors were buying XRP with the expectation of profit tied directly to Ripple's success, making those transactions investment contracts, and therefore securities. Impact. Although this portion of the ruling went in the SEC's favor, it was limited in scope. It clarified that direct, profit-driven sales to institutional investors are subject to securities laws, especially when backed by promotional efforts from the issuer. 3. Other distributions, not securities. Ripple also distributed XRP in non-commercial ways, including employee compensation, paying staff or contractors with XRP, ecosystem development, grants to developers or partners building on the XRP ledger, charitable donations. Why these were not considered securities? These distributions didn't involve any investment of money. The recipients were not purchasing XRP with hopes of profit. In many cases, these were rewards, bonuses, or incentives, not financial investments. Because the Howie Test requires the investment of money component, the court found these distributions didn't qualify as securities. Impact. This further limited the SEC's reach, reinforcing that not all token transfers, even large ones, constitute investment contracts. It provided comfort to other crypto projects that use tokens for incentivizing teams, rewarding users, or building ecosystems. Why this classification matters so much? The breakdown between programmatic, institutional, and other distributions demonstrates that context is everything when it comes to crypto regulation. The same token, XRP, was treated differently based on how and why it was sold or distributed. This approach has now become a landmark framework in the crypto legal landscape. It shows that tokens are not inherently securities. Instead, regulators and courts must consider the nature of each transaction individually. This layered understanding opens the door to smarter, more nuanced regulation, rather than blanket enforcement. This was seen as a partial win for both parties, but a major victory for Ripple and the broader crypto community. The judge recognized that secondary market sales of XRP were not investment contracts under the Howie Test, a legal standard used to determine whether a transaction qualifies as a security. The market reacted swiftly. XRP's price surged by over 70% in the hours following the ruling. Exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, and Gemini quickly relisted XRP. It marked a turning point, giving the crypto industry a legal precedent that digital assets, depending on how they're sold, could fall outside the SEC's jurisdiction. The appeal battle. Despite this partial victory for Ripple, the fight wasn't over. In October 2024, the SEC appealed the ruling, arguing that the judge's decision created a dangerous loophole. According to the agency, distinguishing between institutional and programmatic sales could open the door for companies to skirt securities laws simply by selling through public exchanges. Ripple also filed a cross-appeal contesting the classification of institutional sales as securities. They claimed that all XRP sales should be treated uniformly, especially given the lack of regulatory clarity from the SEC. Both sides dug in, and the case advanced to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. This phase of the case was critical, not only for Ripple, but for the entire regulatory framework governing digital assets in the U.S. The final verdict, March 2025. In March 2025, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals issued its final ruling. It upheld Judge Torres' original decision. The court reaffirmed that XRP's programmatic sales on public exchanges were not securities, but institutional sales were. But what followed was unexpected. The SEC and Ripple decided to settle. The terms of the settlement were as follows. Ripple would pay a reduced fine of $50 million, significantly lower than the original $125 million sought by the SEC. Ripple admitted no wrongdoing. The SEC dropped its appeal of the programmatic sales ruling. Ripple withdrew its cross-appeal regarding institutional sales. The court lifted the injunction requiring Ripple to register future XRP sales, allowing the company to continue operations without immediate regulatory hurdles. This final resolution brought the 4-year legal war to a close. Ripple's legal team called it a win not only for their company, but for innovation in the United States. Brad Garlinghouse tweeted that this was a massive step forward for the industry and thanked the XRP community for standing by them. Impact on XRP and the market. The market responded with optimism. XRP surged to over $2.50, a 13% increase, following the settlement news. The resolution removed a major overhang that had limited XRP's growth and utility in the U.S. market. Institutional players, who had been wary of engaging with XRP, began to reconsider. Beyond Ripple, this case injected a renewed sense of clarity and confidence into the broader crypto space. Companies that were previously hesitant to innovate or launch new tokens now had a legal precedent to refer to. The case also sent a message to regulators. Innovation cannot be stifled through enforcement alone. Clarity must come from legislation, not lawsuits. Why this case matters for crypto's future. The Ripple case was never just about XRP. It was about the future of cryptocurrency in the United States. For years, startups in the crypto space have operated in a fog, unsure whether they were building technology or violating the law. This case brought visibility to some of the biggest regulatory questions in crypto. What makes a token a security? Can the way a token is sold change its legal status? What responsibilities do regulators have to provide clarity before enforcement? Judge Torres' ruling, and its subsequent affirmation, establishes that the context of a transaction matters. A token is not inherently a security. It's how, why, and to whom it is sold that determines legal classification. This distinction is crucial for future innovation. It allows developers, startups, and institutions to move forward without the constant fear of retroactive enforcement. Regulatory shift in the U.S. Interestingly, the conclusion of the Ripple case coincided with a broader political and regulatory shift in Washington. Under the Trump administration, there has been a noticeable change in tone regarding crypto regulation. A newly formed crypto task force aims to build a more structured and innovation-friendly framework for digital assets. Several other high-profile enforcement actions, such as against Coinbase and Binance, are also being reassessed. The Ripple verdict is expected to influence how these cases are handled and how future laws are written. Congress is now under growing pressure to pass comprehensive crypto legislation that defines what constitutes a digital asset, who regulates it, and how consumer protection is ensured. The Ripple case may well serve as a blueprint for this regulatory overhaul. Thanks for tuning in to the NexCrypt, where we don't just talk crypto, we uncover its future. If you got value from this video, drop a like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for weekly deep dives into the world of Web3 and beyond. Until next time, stay curious, stay decentralized.